Welcome everyone. It's been a while since we had this presentation. Today we'll mainly cover the Q2 forecast. I think Adam will also look back on Q1, but I think Q2 is what we'll be looking at. Before we do that, Frank will cover one or two slides, basically promote our upcoming event in Noordwijk, which many of you will also attend, and then Kavita had one or two slides or one or two questions you want to cover with you. So with that, Frank, over to you, and then
Thank you, Peter, and good afternoon to most of the people on the call. Good morning to a few of us that are on from the US. We are thrilled to continue to do these series of calls with Adam and the Context team. I just want to cover a couple of things. So if you go to the next slide, we're really excited about our upcoming event. June 4th and 5th, we will be in Noordwijk, and we're going to have our annual GTDC summit. We've got great attendance, great registration already, and we've got a month to go. And frankly, those of you that aren't yet registered, we would love for you to register and join us. It's going to be an excellent event. We'll have really good speakers. We've got an economist who's going to kind of give us the most current information on global, the macroeconomic environment, as well as with a particular focus on Europe. And we've also got a really good keynote presentation scheduled on AI that a gentleman from IDC will provide. In addition, there'll be a number of panels, and then, of course, really good opportunities for networking, as we always try to do. So if you haven't registered yet, please do so. We'd love to have you there. Second item is I just want to give you a quick update on some of the content that we've recently released or will release. We released in February our Beyond the Cloud Marketplaces report, which is a really good overview of the digital platforms that are in the marketplace, provided by the distributors. And as many of us know, those are gaining more and more importance as we go forward. And then we will have a report released here soon in the next couple of weeks, which is a vendor's guide to market data. And it will talk about, and it's appropriate that we talk about this on a call with context, because what we'll cover is a lot of the value that you all can get from the combined reports that Context and others provide into the marketplace. So you'll get, trends and market analysis and competitive information, et cetera, on a number of different categories. So that report is coming out. Both will be available on our Knowledge Hub. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kavita, and she's got one other item to cover.
Yes, thanks, Frank. This is also report related. We are working on our newest report, which is going to be after the market data gets released for later this summer, focused on cybersecurity. And this is ways that the distributors enable cybersecurity, not only the customers, but the vendors with their products and their services. So we had deployed a survey, and we're trying to get as many responses as we can. So I have a couple of questions here, and Adam has generously allowed us to take a little bit of time here. If you guys don't mind, if you're a cybersecurity vendor touching cybersecurity products or services at all from the distributors, if you don't mind using your handy dandy phone here to access Slido, and I have two quick multiple choice questions. Shouldn't take too long. So we'll give it a minute here. Here we go. Where do your solution provider partners need the most help when building a new cybersecurity practice? If you could select one of these responses.
It's giving a pretty strong indication that the first one is the most important, isn't it?
It is. How can
Great.
distributors best impact adoption and sales for your company's cybersecurity solutions? If you guys, this is a ranking question. So if you could rank by importance, that'd be great. We'll give you guys a little bit more time here because I know you need to read and assess.
So let's move on. So let's just talk about Q1 2024. So I'm going to cover, as Peter said, I'm going to cover a view of Q1, but also Q2, our latest forecast, which is hot off the press. And so it's our latest view of how the market is looking. So Q1, we forecast minus 2.4%, including telecoms, minus 2.6%, excluding telecoms. I think that the way I characterize the start of the year is that we knew directionally, we forecast directionally, it was going to be a negative quarter. We didn't forecast it was going to be as negative as it actually turned out to be. There was a huge amount of relief about getting to the end of 2023, which was such a very challenging year for distribution. There was a lot of optimism in people thinking it can't get any worse and it's going to get better. Most people, even from October, when we started talking about 2024, recognized that it was going to be an H1 and an H2 story in 2024. Most people, including ourselves, thought that the turnaround would take place in Q2. I think that there was just a little bit too much optimism, and that the weight of the economic challenges facing Europe and the rest of the world has slowed down the business more than we thought. We've seen that particularly in infrastructure, with networking being very slow, servers, LFDs went really down, and also a lot of the peripheral business. So basically, the net of all of that is that we came in at 6.5, minus 6.5, and minus 5.9 if you take telecoms out. The reason that it didn't do so badly without telecoms is that telecoms had a dreadful quarter, minus 10%, which is really why it was so bad. So it was worse than expected, and I think that various countries, you'll see that later on, particularly bad. Germany was bad, UK was bad, Spain was bad. If you look at it on a category basis, we have a top sector analysis, which puts the whole of distribution into 5 top sectors. You can see that we were below on infrastructure. It was networking that came. We already had a very low negative forecast for networking, wireless networking, and also for the networking systems as well, the switches. But it came in below on both of those. And LFD really, really lost out. There was some price reductions, and there was also some volume reductions that we did not anticipate. Personal systems were pretty close. They were at the pessimistic end, but within the forecasting range that we had set. Peripherals, imaging did really badly. It was a minus 20% in Q1. Other displays, accessories also did badly. Software pretty much on forecast, and as I say, telecoms very poor. You can see that volume went down to minus 7% or minus 6% if you exclude telecoms, and value was pretty close as well. The two converge, volume and value have converged in the last couple of quarters after value had had its really big recovery period. And so we forecast minus 2% for value and minus 3% for volume. So we were 3% off of the volume and 4% off from the value. If you look at it on a channel basis, then you can see that SMR, which is the absolute stronghold for distribution, had a really tough quarter. It did better than corporate reseller. It basically was still at minus 5%, but as you can see, corporate reseller went right down. So it's kind of holding up, but not where we'd like it to be. Retail had a really good Q4 and didn't do so badly in Q1, and retail consumer declining quite a bit. So that's on the channel basis there. We always do this analysis once a quarter, which looks at the units, ASP, and revenues. It's quite useful just to get a handle of what's going on, both in terms of pricing and volumes. You can see that very few hardware categories actually increased in quantity over the period. Processors were one of them, and also large format displays. But when you look at the prices, you can see again that quite a lot of a reduction there. What is interesting, though, is that the 9% increase in internal solid state drives, the 4% in toner, the 2% in ink cartridges, and the 3% in graphic cards, those price increases mean that for the first time in the last few quarters, the actual ASP rose by 1%. So that's good news, and certainly a tendency which we think we're going to see continuing throughout the year. And so that gives you the revenues, and the only hardware category where the revenues actually went up year on year was processors. If you look at on a country basis how the different countries did, where the two bars are close together, like UK, Italy, France, means that we were pretty close on the forecast. We certainly underestimated Germany and how gloomy it is and has been. And, you know, when I speak to German distributors, they've said to me that they never thought it was going to continue to be as bad as it has been in Germany in Q1. It was a tough compare, because Q1 23 was actually pretty strong on the infrastructure side. But nevertheless, it's been a really poor performance there. And Spain really slowed down. Again, Spain had a really strong 2023, so that may influence why we got that forecast wrong, in fact. But there we are. So that's the countries. And then if we look at it on a vendor basis, we can see there are a few winners. There's a notable one there, which is AMD, which is in that processor category, which we saw growing, which has seen its fortunes really change recently. The imaging vendors had been doing so well, but they had a really tough quarter. As I said, they were minus 20% down overall, although Lexmark seemed to buck the trend there. You can see that on the volume side, it was pretty challenging for most of the volume players there. Dell, of the big ones, did the best, only minus 1%. And you can see all the others were really challenged and obviously hit by the telecoms, people like Apple, and PCs going down. Admittedly, PCs only down by a small percentage compared to what we've been used to in the previous quarters. When we look at the value vendors, something hit me straight away, which I hadn't seen until I put this together today for the GTDC, which is we have a new in the #1 slot, which is Microsoft. So Microsoft had a really huge quarter, 13% growth, and that's entirely down to their Office applications software. We've seen a big growth in cloud. We did a presentation on it last week. And after a poor Q4, we're seeing a real resurgence in cloud sales through distribution. And so Microsoft has done really, really well. They're taking the top slot. And I think this is the first time. I don't think I've ever seen them in that top slot before. Certainly not since I've been doing this. So that's quite an interesting thing to note. You can see that Red Hat has done very well. I was very struck by HP coming into the top 15. A year ago, they were in the 19th position in the value sales. So I had a look to see what it was that had helped HP grow. And it was their operating system software and their telephony systems. Those are the two big categories that grew and allowed a 22% year-on-year growth. So that's quite interesting to see that. And we see the interesting to see that Fortinet is down. It's been one of the ones that's been a huge grower, but I guess it's got pretty much more challenging quarterly numbers now. So let's move on now to look at the outlook for the coming year. So we've been in many discussions in the last couple of weeks with vendors, with distributors, and with resellers to see what the mood is. And one of the things which I was really keen to establish was that this H2 2024 was not going to be a repeat of the story we were all telling ourselves back in 2023. So I said to all the analysts, come on, we want facts. We want facts which are going to reassure us that the things are going in a better direction. And I think that a lot of the facts actually sit there in the data already that we're seeing, particularly in some of the categories such as personal systems, which we predicted right back from last October when we did our first view of 2024 was going to be the engine of growth in 2024, when we looked at it in October 23. And we can see that that is truly beginning to happen. So let's have a look and see what this actually gives in terms of forecast. But before we do that, I would love to ask you to say what you think the likely overall growth of the distribution market in 2024 is going to be. I've asked you this twice already in October and January. And so it's very useful for you and as well for us to have a sense of what you think it's going to be, and whether you're more or less confident than you were the last two times when I asked this question. So I hope that everybody who's on this call has a view. We don't know who votes for what, so it's completely anonymous. And it'd be great to have as many as possible because obviously the more we get, the better. Thank you very much. Gosh, 1 to 2%. Still some real optimists there, greater than 5 and 3 to 5. And I'll have to add this all up. I would say actually that might be a little bit more optimistic than last time. So last time we were at 3 to 5% and 1 to 2%. There were the top ones. Last time it was very clear it went down to 1 to 2%. So we can see that, and that was by more than 50%. So and here we are, we're in it's only 26% in that category, whereas it was 56% the last time. So I think actually there's a bit of a growth in optimism here, which is good. I'm afraid we don't share that because we've gone down a little bit, but let's talk about that. And let's just ask you what you see for Q2 2024. 43% are flat. Okay, so we're pretty close in terms of that. So let's have a look a little bit at some of the stats which we've got just in the background. So it took me a bit of time to work out. The OECD has got a new place to get data from. It took me the best part of yesterday to work out how to get the data, but let's have a look and see what's going on with consumer confidence. So I've just taken the US, the UK, and the Euro area, and it came up with a bit of a surprise to me. That was the surprise. Now we've seen the UK performing better in the last month. There's been a real resurgence there and a sense of positive movement in the UK. But consumers, that really surprised me because we're still faced with all sorts of challenges, not least the fact that interest rates are high and that inflation still doesn't seem to be coming down. But nevertheless, that was very interesting. That's a little source of hope, I think, for us. Euro areas still very flat in terms of consumer confidence. And then I did the same for business confidence, and you can see it going right down after the war started and inflation and all the different things that problems we've been admiring. And you can see a little upturn there in the OECD data in the last couple of months. We're nowhere near where we were even last July. in terms of positive sentiment in the UK. But United States is way off where it was before. We're all way off where it was before. But it looks like directionally, we're going in a positive direction. And this one was interesting, taking the business confidence down to the lower level in the Euro area. We can see that France is on the up. Spain, although they tend to be always a bit optimistic, they've been a bit gloomy the last few months because of the situation in Spain, but the business indications are positive there. UK is on the up, and you can see that Germany, which is the laggard at the moment, is still really dragging along now behind the other countries in terms of confidence. So when we look at the forecast, we look at the opportunities and the risks. And so this slide, which I present each quarter, changes very slightly as we see things changing in the market. And I think the most important thing here is that the product refresh cycle is on the move and mobile computing is on a positive trend. You'll be able to see that in the data and in our forecasts. And it really is positive. There's also some huge stuff going on in data centers. We saw servers growth, which came from some incredible deals that were done by NVIDIA in Q1, which we talked about today, and made a big difference to the server numbers. So that's exciting to actually see that happening. It's a bit of a joker for us in terms of the performance for 2024, because we don't know how much it's going to impact the 2024 numbers, but it's certainly interesting. As far as AI is concerned, after listening to everybody in the forecasting sessions, my view is that we're going to hear a lot of very exciting technology announcements in 2024, but the actual change in numbers is going to happen in 2025. Now, that's something which people have been saying to me for some time, but I think I really begin to see the shape of that now with the timing of announcements. And there will be some significant changes. I think that this time in a year, we're going to be looking at a very different landscape from what we're looking at now. And part of the challenge for us all is to be agile enough to react to those changes and to know what it is that means. And it's not just accelerating sales, it's actually also delaying sales because people are waiting to see what technology they should buy. So that's kind of interesting. The risks are really the same. It's the whole economic headwinds. There's this price uncertainty, although, as I said, we did see this first quarter when the hardware ASPs went up a little bit. Yeah, so that's positive. And political uncertainty is not going away. We've still got the war going on. We've got the wars going on. We've got the elections in the US, and who knows? This week we heard that President Trump might be put into jail. Who knows what will happen there? So in terms of our growth estimates, we're at the pessimistic end of the estimates. So last time when we presented, we gave our central estimate was 2.3%. We're at 0 now. So I think that our call goes something like this. The minus 6.6% is mathematical and goes into the 2024 numbers. We see a poorer than anticipated Q2. And so Q3 and Q4, we could have increased it. And I think that maybe the optimism from the people responding to the survey online here today is coming from a sense that things are really getting better. And maybe our numbers are not reflecting that enough in Q3 and Q4. But we've kept to growth in Q3 and Q4, but not huge growth. So that's why we get to a flat year. And I seriously hope that that is where we stop. I don't want to see a slide, which I did see last year, showing how our forecast went down each quarter, which is what happened last year. as we continually were disappointed by the performance of 2023. So I think that I feel pretty good that H2 is going to be positive. If you look at it, what that means in terms of quarterly flow, it means that the forecast for Q2 is negative, -1.3. Most of you thought it'd be flat. We had a forecast of +1% the last time I showed this to you. The shift isn't enormous in terms of percentages, but obviously psychologically, we wanted to be able to see ourselves getting into growth in Q2. April has been really positive. It's possibly one of the most complicated months to work out what is going on in. And next week, we will have the full April results. But when I was looking at the April results this week, we had 4 weeks of April 24 against 4 weeks of April 23. Last April had Easter in. This April has 2 days more in. And when I was looking at it last week, we were missing the last 2 days of April. So it made comparisons very, very difficult to see. But overall, there is a good feeling in April. And it's more than just the fact that stuff did not get invoiced at the end of March because of Easter. There's a genuine sense that there's something positive which is happening. So, you know, we may be being a little bit cautious in our forecast, but that's where we think it's going to end up at a just marginally negative, with growth of 3 to 4% in Q3, Q4, and Q1 2025. This is quite a telling slide because it really does show how important in the growth of 2024 and 2025 personal systems is. After a couple of years of serious negative growth and after the huge growth in 2020 and 21, we are beginning to see things flatten out, and we had a much better Q1 than we had than Q4. And we're forecasting growth from next quarter onwards. And we're seeing it in the numbers, we're seeing it in the pipeline. And so we do believe that is going to be growth. Infrastructure, interestingly, storage is a big driver of that growth in 2024. There are some really significant growth rates that we anticipate in Q3 and Q4 for storage. Servers is negative, wireless networking is negative, LFD goes positive as well. Peripherals are a little bit the laggard in the channel. That's printers and monitors and accessories and UC, all those areas there are kind of slow and not really picking up. We don't see anything really driving huge change on the peripherals business. Software is doing very well, continuing to build year on year with good growth rates. If you look at it on a country basis, you can see that basically Q2 is still posing a challenge, so it's negative Q2 in all countries, but we start to move into growth in Q3, which effectively, the last time I presented it to you, is the deferral by a quarter of growth. So that's really, you know, pretty common across all the different countries. So with that, I hope that it's a helpful overview of what's going on in the channel. The best thing is that I hope to see lots of you in June at the GTDC Summit. It's a terrific place for networking and seeing everybody. And we appreciate it all so much since COVID was over. So I hope I'll see lots of you there.
Thank you, Anna. Really good presentation. Hope the decline has stopped or will stop this quarter. It's well, it looks hopeful, at least for Q3 and Q4.
Well, I hope that the people on this call are right and I'm wrong. I hope that we are at 2 to 3% growth. At the moment, we're a little bit more downbeat on that, but I think there is the opportunity. Yeah.
So, well, hope to see you all there, and thank you for attending this session, and speak to you all soon. Thank you.